Believe it or not, those massive planes you fly on usually don't belong to the airline whose logo is on the tail. Right now, over 5,000 planes are crisscrossing the US skies, but more than half of them are actually rentals. Take Frontier Airlines, for example. They operate an entire empire in the clouds, yet they own exactly 0 planes, not a single one. Even a giant like American Airlines leases more than half of its main fleet, while Spirit is almost 100% powered by borrowed jets. In this high-altitude rental market, Delta Airlines is the rare exception, the wealthy landlord that actually cuts a check to own most of its fleet outright. So, why do so few airlines actually own their planes? Is there some hidden strategy at play? Let's break down the wild world of aircraft leasing right here on Global Flow Channel. To understand why, think of buying a plane as a high-stakes gamble that could bankrupt even the biggest players. A standard short-haul jet costs over $100 million, while those massive ocean crossers, those easily hit $350 million. But airlines don't just need one, they need hundreds. Sinking billions into giant metal tubes that lose value every single day is a financial nightmare. Even if an airline has a mountain of cash ready for Boeing or Airbus, they'd likely be told to get in line. With today's production speeds, the waiting list for a new jet can be a decade long. The game changed in 1973 when 3 entrepreneurs in California started ILFC, a company built just to lease planes. They paved the way by renting out a single DC-8 to Aeromexico. Then, in 1978, the US deregulated the industry. Suddenly, airlines were locked in a brutal price war to survive, and leasing became their secret weapon because it was just so much more flexible. Real-world crises show why this matters. When COVID hit, the US government had to pump $200 billion into airlines just to keep them afloat. Or look at Russia in 2022, where sanctions following the invasion of Ukraine essentially trapped over 500 leased planes overnight. If those had been paid for in full with an airline's own money, tens of billions of dollars would have vanished the second the hammer dropped. So, next time you're in the air, don't be shocked if the wings belong to Company A, the engines belong to Company B, and the real title holder is actually a bank sitting halfway across the world. Airlines have a clever move in their playbook called a sale-leaseback. It sounds technical, but it's actually a classic power move. A major airline uses its massive buying power to score a huge discount, sometimes up to 50% off the sticker price on a fleet of new planes. But instead of keeping them, they immediately sell those planes to a leasing company and then rent those exact same planes back. The payoff? The airline gets a mountain of instant cash to fuel their business while still pocketing massive tax breaks. It's the ultimate way to have your cake and eat it too. However, while sale-leasebacks are great for quick cash, the biggest reason airlines are obsessed with leasing is total flexibility, something you just don't get when you buy outright. Think of it like this. Instead of dropping a massive down payment on a car and watching its value tank every day, you just pay a monthly fee, drive it for a few years, and then hand back the keys to upgrade to the latest model. Airlines do the exact same thing, just with $100 million machines. If the economy crashes or a pandemic leaves seats empty, the airline isn't stuck with billions in dead debt on their books. And if a competitor starts flying a new, more fuel-efficient jet, the airline can just wait for their lease to end and swap out their entire fleet for the newest tech. Leasing keeps airlines light on their feet, allowing them to pivot with the market without ever breaking a sweat. Look at Indigo, an airline out of India. Back in 2006, they started with absolutely nothing. No planes, no passengers, zero. But instead of saving up every penny to buy their first jet, they went all in on a 100% rental strategy. Their tactic was brilliant and cold-blooded. They signed short-term leases, usually only 6 or 7 years long. They would fly their Airbus A320s non-stop while the planes were brand new and most fuel efficient. The moment those jets started showing wear and tear or needed expensive, heavy maintenance, Indigo simply handed back the keys and swapped them for factory-fresh replacements. The results have been staggering. Indigo exploded from a nobody to one of the biggest airline powerhouses on the planet, now carrying hundreds of millions of passengers a year, surpassing giants like JetBlue or Air France. In less than 20 years, they went from 0 planes to over 400 in the air, with nearly 1,000 more on order. By sticking to just one type of aircraft, they simplified everything. Every pilot and mechanic only needs to master one machine. It's the ultimate example of using borrowed strength to scale at lightning speed. And this isn't just an overseas phenomenon. Right here in the US, major players like American and United, along with budget kings like Frontier and Spirit, are following this exact playbook. They use the leverage of leasing to expand fast, keep their fleets young and healthy, and most importantly, keep ticket prices as low as possible for the average traveler. So, who actually holds the keys to the kingdom? Forget about Delta, United, or the flashy names like Emirates. The real titans of the sky are financial ghosts that 99% of passengers have never even heard of. Take AerCap, for example. Based out of Dublin, Ireland, this invisible empire owns a staggering 1,700 commercial jets. When you factor in their engines, helicopters, and thousands of pending orders, their portfolio jumps to over 3,500 high-priced machines. To put that into perspective, AerCap's fleet is more massive than any single airline on the planet. They don't care about painting a logo on the tail, they just care about holding the title deeds. Along with AerCap, power players like Avalon, SMBC Aviation Capital, and Carlyle Aviation Partners quietly control hundreds of billions of dollars in assets cruising over your head every day. These shadow landlords are indifferent to what you're eating for dinner or how much legroom you have. They are focused solely on one thing: collecting rent from the airlines you trust. The craziest part nobody expects? Almost all of these massive empires are actually run from one tiny country, Ireland. Today, 14 out of the 15 largest aircraft leasing companies in the world call Ireland home. So, how did a tiny island like Ireland become the world's ultimate toll booth for every plane you fly? Why are 14 out of the 15 biggest aircraft owners on Earth all squeezed into this one spot? It all boils down to one word: cash. First, let's talk about the tax game. Ireland has historically kept its corporate tax rates at rock bottom. Even with new rules pushing it to 15%, it's still a total steal compared to the rest of the world. Do the math. When you're managing hundreds of billions in jets, shaving off just 1% in taxes doesn't just buy you a coffee, it pockets you hundreds of millions in extra profit every single year. Second, Ireland turned a migraine-inducing mountain of paperwork into a walk in the park. Owning a plane is an accounting nightmare, tracking depreciation, reporting to global investors, and juggling different laws in different countries. Instead of letting companies drown in a legal maze, Ireland standardized the whole thing. One simple set of rules for everyone: fast, clean, and stress-free. But here's their secret weapon, the one that leaves everyone else in the dust: a massive network of tax treaties with over 70 countries. Imagine you're an airline in Brazil or Thailand trying to rent a jet. Normally, your local government might slap a brutal withholding tax of up to 30% on every single monthly payment. On a $400,000 rent check, you're suddenly flushing an extra $120,000 down the toilet just in taxes. That's a deal breaker for any business. But thanks to Ireland's special handshakes, that tax often vanishes or drops to near zero. Ireland basically told the world, "Come here. We'll take a smaller cut, kill the red tape, and make it dirt cheap for your customers to rent from you." And the entire global aviation industry didn't just listen, they moved in. The power held by those shadow owners in Ireland isn't always a smooth ride. Imagine a scenario where a $100 million jet crashes or simply vanishes from the radar. When that happens, who actually foots the bill? The answer is a harsh reality check. Every commercial flight is essentially covered by two safety nets, one for the physical aircraft and one for the passengers' lives. But looking at a tragedy like MH370 reveals a brutal double standard in how responsibility is divided. Almost immediately after that Boeing 777 disappeared, the insurance giant Allianz cut a check for roughly $100 million to cover the cost of the plane itself. The money for the hunk of metal was settled in a heartbeat. But what about the human lives on board? Initially, the victims' families were offered a measly $50,000 advance. Many families were rightfully outraged and chose a long, painful legal battle instead. It's hard to believe, but it took 11 grueling years until 2025 for a court to finally rule that each family should receive around $400,000. Think about that. $100 million for a plane paid out instantly, but over a decade of fighting to get justice for a human life. This is exactly why those moguls in Dublin can sleep soundly at night. Even though they own the planes on paper, they carry zero legal liability when things go wrong. They are strictly landlords. All the legal nightmares, the financial fallout, and the heartbreaking grief of the families fall squarely on the airlines and the insurance companies. At the end of the day, looking at the big picture, the airlines are just the face of the industry. They've got the flashy logos on the tail, the smiling flight attendants, and the tempting loyalty points. But don't confuse popularity with power. The truth is, the real financial muscle shifted away from the airlines a long time ago. But wait, there is a silver lining for the average traveler's wallet. This rental-heavy business model is actually the reason budget travel exists. Without the flexibility of leasing, those dirt-cheap tickets would likely vanish. So from here on out, when stepping onto a Spirit or Frontier flight, is it a little unnerving to know the airline might not even own the tires on the landing gear? Or is it a simple trade-off? As long as the price is right, who actually owns the plane doesn't matter as much as the savings. Which side do you land on? The peace of mind of a wealthy giant like Delta, or the high-stakes savings of the budget carriers? Let us know in the comments below.